want to have me to rest. But you know what? You know what? The spirit in me, the Biafra spirit in me, I said, when I told you, if Mazen Nnamdi Kanu is looking for 100 people, I promise that I have 50 in me. You have not seen anything. It is not by my power. It is not by my power. It is not by my power. But, you know, as an eke or eke. My own oru, I am a roy, arucha, ike. You understand? Till Biafra come. But, today you are going to receive sense. The crypto, Nigeria crypto. As they are crippling your economy, they close border. They closed the border. ESN came out automatically, you know, weaponized. It shocked them. It shocked them. They said, this border no work. Oh. This close of border no work. Oh. Now, how do we stop the funding now of this Sunday or Igbo? How do we stop the contribution? Let us stop the crypto. Because they were following Nigerians, southern Nigerians. Use crypto. We should open crypto. Crypto. We use crypto. Don't use the Western Union. Don't use this. They say, so these people are doing crypto. Okay, let us slash them. Bah! They are not considering the economic impact of crypto. No. They are not considering how much the crypto is bringing to Nigeria economy. Their agenda is not to make Nigeria progress. No. They have a better agenda. Now you get the point. Now you get the point. My only problem is that why is it that you must wait? Was Thomas born in Nigeria? Is Thomas a Nigerian? Is Thomas in the Bible in Nigeria? Are you a lineage of Thomas? Are you a lineage of Thomas? All of you have Thomas blood in your vein. How did you get Thomas blood in your vein? That it must happen to you first before you understand. He had a baby here more in Anubia. He had more kind of man. Woo! When we are telling you, you don't know, no, we are telling you, even we are not prophets, but everything we have said, everything we open this mouth to say, if it don't happen today, it will happen tomorrow. I want you to go from the beginning of this struggle. From the beginning. In fact, even the one that we are not sure of, once God asks us to say it, we will say it and God will do it. Hey! Nwanne nwoke dịrị obi mma ọ dị mma. Hey! Ihe mere dị mma. Ihe mere dị mma. Ihe mere dị mma. Oh, ihe mere dị mma. I said, did you see the prayer? May God harden the heart of the leaders in Nigeria. I want you people to understand that the liberation of Biafra has entered the highest stage in the history of Biafra. Not even during the war. I am telling you, it has entered the highest stage ever. And we are going to do everything humanly possible in this life to restore Biafra, everything humanly possible will be done. And I want you people to understand that the Biafra liberation is step by step, segment by segment, plan by plan, executions by execution. We'll be executing those plans according to the template till the last one. And Biafra.
Let us go talk about the objective of your struggle and how do you intend to achieve it in practical terms?
In practical terms, it is civil disobedience. The same way that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. accomplished civil rights in America, the same way that Mahatma Gandhi led India to independence out of British colonial rule, the same principles we are applying, and might I add, very successfully too. We will do everything possible to unravel and unshackle the zoo called Nigeria. Everything humanly possible. No stone will be left unturned. We will sacrifice everything sacrificable. Material, life, blood will throw into.
And we will do everything humanly possible to see the Biafra.
Onye si na agata anya ahụhụ ma ọ bụ na anyị fe arụsị anyị wee na-efe arụsị iwe were iwe gị na ọmụma gị wee bịa leta anyị ụmụ anyị wee na-anwụsị ụfọdụ nọ n'ụzọ ije ha anaghị alọta ụlọ ọzọ nne na nna wee na-ata ahụhụ wee na-ata ikikere eze nwaanyị kunye ka ọ gaa ubi gaa rụọ ọrụ Fulani chiri ehi bata ebe ala gị ndị n'iyi okwu ebepụ ya isi anyị bụ ka anyị kpọpụ onye nwe anyị n'ugwu Awụsa ahụ ejide anyị wee gbuo ihe ọ bụ anyị mara aka n'ime ha si maka ha aga n'ihu elekwa ọdụ ụgbọ mmiri n'igwe ọcha bụ ememiri ọhịa nke dị na Kalaba otu aka ahụ anyị na-ala nsọ ebe Biafra bụ ndị kọstọm sokwenye anyị n'etiti anyị anyị anọghị n'ime mmiri kama kọstọm jiri ebe niile ha wee na-ata anyị ahụhụ anyị kwuo sịpụta anyị ka kpọchie anyị kwuo sịpụta anyị ka gbagbuo anyị onye nwe anyị na Chineke na nke bi n'igwe ọ bụ ụzọ dị anya ka isi na-ebu ndị iro anyị anya wee karịa ndị nke gị akwa anyị bụ ụmụ Chineke akwa ọba aha anyị ka anyị na-aza akwa ọba anyị nwe na-aza ike Chukwu akwa ọba anyị nwe na-aza amara Chineke akwa ọba anyị nwe na-aza Chisom akwa ọba anyị nwe na-aza Chizọba nna nke dị nsọ onye ime eluigwe dịka otu onye iro dị na anyị bụ ụmụ gị bịa ka iwe zọpụta anyị bịa ka iwe napụta anyị n'aka ọjọọ ihe bịa ka iwe lụọrọ anyị ọgụ Lucky way to zoo. Oh, go on, memory and Goliath. Children and people who memory now fellow. She brought to a man, can follow up on you home on the idea of the way type of people your thoughts. They can do any news on him in case you will. Ọbụla adịghị na anyị na-aga ndagwurugwu onyinye ọnwụ ọ bụ nwa bụ ekerele igwe ma ọ bụ nwunye ọbụla kere gị n'oge malite n'oge ọgwụgwụ kama anyị nwe anyị kwa anọkwa ahụ ofu ụbọchị anyị ga-anwụ n'ezie kama ma akọ na okwu gị na-anọgide ego ego mgbe ebighị ebi ọ bụ ya mere anyị ji were gị n'anya isi anyị wee na-asị nna nke dị nsọ bịa ka iwe gosi anyị Biafra na ndụ na-abụghị n'ọnwụ bịa ka iwe na-ekebe gị na amara gị wee kpuchiri anyị ka uwe bịa ka iwe zọpụta ndị nke gị bịa ka iwe mee ka Biafra wee bịa ka anyị na-ewetụta na nsọpụrụ na ịja mma site n'aha gị onye bụ Chukwu nke abịa ma.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us on this very quick evening program. Remember, we are still on our course of freedom and we are still chasing our freedom. A lot of things has happened in the past and continue to happen. We have entered into a very interesting year, the year 2026, the long-awaited year, a time that things are going to happen. Wherever you are, tighten up your belt. Many things have already started happening in 2025, and everything that is going to happen in 2026 is going to be for our favor. 2026 is not for noise making. 2026 is not for attacking your brother or sister. 2026 is not for envy and jealousy. 2026 is not for propaganda. 2026 is not for pity. 2026 is not for sympathy. It is a time for us to show discipline. It is a time for us to show strategy on how to get Biafra. 2026 is going to be a very interesting year, wherever you are, even as we have entered the new year. So many of us are still in our journey. So many have traveled to so many places. Wherever you are, do not forget that we have a situation at hand. Do not forget that we have a responsibility. Do not forget that we have a battle. Do not lose your guard. Remain consistent in the pursuit of Biafra. Remember our unity of purpose. I have always spoken about unity every time in this platform, and I will continue to speak about it no matter what the people think, no matter what they say, no matter the hatred and attack that is coming. And I wonder why somebody will be hated because you call for freedom, because you call for unity. It is so sad when you see somebody hating you simply because you are calling for unity. There must be something wrong out there, because unity is one thing that every human being should pray for, should wish for, should aspire for. But when you wake up and you realize that there are a certain group of people that do not want unity, then you begin to question yourself, what do they want? In 2026, unity of purpose, very important. And remember, I have always said it, that when I talk about this unity, I'm talking about unity of purpose. Unity does not mean we must be in one group. Unity does not mean we must speak in one voice. Unity does not mean that we cannot have our own opinion. Unity does not mean that we become ignorant. Unity simply means that we know what we want and we have a focus and we pursue the purpose for which we are doing what we are doing. So wherever you're watching me this evening, I encourage you to continue to stand strong. The battle is not easy. The battle is tough. Very, very tough. Tougher than you can ever imagine. But I urge you to remain consistent, remain strong. My fellow Biafrans, we have come a long way. And we will continue to fight this battle until we win. It is not easy. It is difficult. I'm not going to come here to tell you that it is easy, it is a walk in the park. No, it is not. Freedom requires consistency, it requires effort, it requires dedication, it requires consistency, it requires huge sacrifice, sometimes to the extent of giving your life. 2026 is going to be rewarding for every one of us that have been genuine in the pursuit of the cause of Biafra. 2026 is going to mark a new beginning for us. 2026 is going to mark success for us. 2026 is going to be amazing. Don't forget. Don't look back. Do not be discouraged. Do not be deterred. A lot of things are going to happen in 2026. There will be many attacks that are coming from east, west, and south. It is going to be a very, very interesting year, more than ever before. And as we speak, a lot of things are already happening. But I urge you in the name of Chukwu Abiyam, wherever you find yourself, please don't forget whom you are. Don't forget whom you are. Don't forget why you are doing what you are doing. Do not forget our collective responsibility. Do not forget our collective desire and effort. We must continue to fight this battle together and continue to pursue our freedom. Inasmuch as it is not an easy task, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is light at the end of the tunnel. No matter how difficult it is, do not give up. Continue to stay strong. Continue to stay focused. We must win this battle. There is already a green light. There is already a green light. With the change of the world order, we are seeing that the world order is changing. So there is hope. As we speak, many of you must have seen the United Nations resolution that is being passed in meetings. You and I know that the UN is powerless. You and I know that the UN themselves are clueless, and they are always late. The United Nations always late in their presence. There have been so many havoc, so many atrocities, so many evil has happened, and no sensible person will continue to wait for the United Nations. No reasonable person will continue to wait for the United Nations to take action. So we have gotten to a stage where a world power like the United States of America under Donald Trump have decided to take the bull by the horn, and we appreciate that effort. So wherever you are as a Biafra, you must key in, and continue to pursue your freedom. Speak sincerely. Continue to put effort. All hope is not done. They try to silence our supreme leader, Mazen Nandekan. They silenced Mazen Nandekan. When was the last time you heard about Mazen Nandekan? When was the last time you heard people speak about him? When was the last time you yourself posted Mazen Nandekan? When was the last time you spoke about Mazen Nandekan, the supreme leader of IPOB? So many of you are already forgetting him, which is what the Nigerian government wants you to do. That is why they take him to Sokoto. They took Mazen Nandekan to Sokoto so that you cannot have access to him. They limited Mazen Nandekan communication so that you will not know what is going on with him. So, are you buying into the idea of the enemy? Have you been overcome by the enemy? Have you suddenly forgotten the supreme leader of IPOB, Mazen Nandekan, who is suffering today because of you and I? Who gave his own life for you, gave his career for you, gave everything for you? Have you suddenly forgotten our Prime Minister, Mazi Simon Ekpa? When was the last time you talked about him? When was the last time you spoke about Mazi Simon Ekpa, Mazi Nandekan? When was the last time you demanded for their freedom in your platform? When was the last time you told somebody about them? In 2026, we will not be silent. We will not be silent in the pursuit of our freedom. We will not be silent in demanding for our rights. We will not be silent in asking for that which is ours. 2026, we will speak more. We will act more. We will do more than we have done before, but with precise target. It is not just noise in 2026. It is not just noise. We go with strategy. It is not for sympathy. We are not seeking for sympathy because nobody's going to sympathize with you in 2026. It is a time for action, and the action has already started. All we need to do is to position ourselves properly and key in on asking. And I pray that Chukwu Okukabiam will give us that wisdom and understanding to do what we have to do. You know, our evening program, we always go on their conventional media to see what they are saying and what is going on. When we hear what is happening in Nigeria, from there, we can be able to build our own thought and also be able to debunk all their lies, debunk all their propaganda. That is why we always go to their conventional media to show the world what is happening in Nigeria. And we are going to do the same this evening as we have always done. Going to their conventional media to look into their program, what they are saying, their lies, their propaganda, all their blackmail. We go down to look into them. And from there, we will share with you. Let us hear what they are saying in their conventional media. Let us listen and hear the report that is coming from the conventional media.
No fewer than 9 soldiers were killed yesterday and several others injured when their convoy hit a landmine and came under fire from terrorists in Borno State. The attack took place on Sunday near Bindundu village, some 12 miles from Karito, an area where Daesh-affiliated Islamic State West Africa province ISWAP fighters were said to operate freely and often set up checkpoints. According to two security sources from the Damasak Brigade, the terrorists planted a mine that our soldiers stepped on. Unfortunately, about 9 soldiers died instantly, while 5 others were seriously injured. That's a direct quote. A member of the Civilian Joint Task Force involved in the rescue operation, Abba Kakatuja, added that an armored vehicle was destroyed when the mine detonated, followed by sporadic gunfire from militants. Well, those are the top stories today. We are looking at all things from the road to elections heating up, both politically and in terms of our election infrastructure, INEC developments in Rivers State, insecurity, tragic news of our men who lost their lives yesterday, as well as, of course, the economy with NUPRC and NMDPRA boards.
Okay, first I'd like to pay tribute to our dear troops that lost their life in active service. The death of every man diminishes all of us. But these are patriots. These are those that keep putting their life on the line to fight for all of us. They could have been with their families celebrating the festivities of the new year. But out there on a mission to keep Nigeria sovereign and safe, they pay the supreme price with their lives, and their sacrifices will never be forgotten. But I also quickly want to add another story that hurts my heart. And it's based on a reporting by Daily Trust about what happened in Niger yesterday. You've not heard the end of it. The president did say, let's go after those that perpetrated that heinous act. What happened in Niger? Stories are beginning to emerge that the death toll was not even 30, it was more than 30. Some are saying 45, some are saying 60. But the shocking thing for me that hurts me the most is the fact that the kids that were just rescued from Papiri in Niger State, some of them were reabducted in that kidnapping. Because it was not only killings that happened, the terrorists also abducted people in Niger. So just imagine the trauma of a kid that had just faced the trauma of being in the bush, abducted. Now that kid been reabducted in the space of a month and a half. 2 times, insecurity struck. They went through the ordeal of negotiating their release. Now, the newspaper Daily Trust claimed they've been reabducted. This is our country for you. This is the sad reality. I don't want to go the phrase, oh, Nigeria happened, but it happens. When we say Nigeria happens, because they are in Nigeria, and there's a level of insecurity.
It will happen to all of you.
One thing also happen, we can also say Nigeria happened, and no biggies about that. But that's the sad reality of the insecurity we're fighting, and that's why it's not just President Tinubu saying, go fight them away in France, while he's in France. It's about him doing something about this insecurity. It's lasted for too long. As regards Wike, I see the reason for his reaction. Give it to President Tinubu, that man is a master strategist. Like I was saying the other day when Mr. Tony Cole was here, I said the reason why when Mr. Wike wanted to impeach Fubara, President Tinubu intervened and probably gave him a leeway was so that he will have options. And his options have come up. So now, Fubara has joined the APC. The APC top apparatchik have closed rank with him. You can see the chairman of the party saying the other day that he's our man. Then Bolaji Bashir is saying, Wike, you're not even a member of the APC. And you see that's why politicians should be careful. When Wike was going at people in his own party, did he forget that at some point in the APC they will tell him you're not a member of the APC? Because Fubara has joined the APC. And President Tinubu has played him out in the game. Guess what? Unknowingly, after he got the Supreme Court ruling that he did the local government elections again last year, he went to put most of the local government chairmen as APC members. He ensured they got it. The State House of Assembly defected to APC. The governor, APC. Wike, PDP. It's so easy to scheme him out. And that's why the likes of Ajibala Bashir can challenge him and say, yeah, not in the party. You don't have a right to tell us what you do in the party. Yes, Wike can say, oh, you can't tell me that. Don't put your mouth in reverse politics. Say all sorts. But President Tinubu has strategically schemed it out. That's why they call him the Jagaban. I don't agree with President Tinubu on many things, but on this, he has shown is the political Jagaban. He has schemed him out. So Wike can go ahead with his local government tour. But what Wike forgets is Yes, you will say the local government chairmen they are loyal to you, right? But they are in the APC. Most of them, I think save for one or two that PDP won. Majority of them are in the APC. So it's been schemed out. President Zinuka choose to work with Fubara, and that's why Bashir said that he could resign. So the question is, will Wike now want to fight back and go against the grain and fight the federal might? As in he wants to get a candidate to challenge Fubara? It might be a game up for him. This might be the beginning of the end of this fight. On this, like they say on the streets, President Tinubu 200, Wike 0.
Okay, very quickly, let me start with the boards. Now, what the law, the enabling law, setting up either the UPRC or the NMDPRA says is that there shall be a board. Now, it has taken President Bola Ahmed Tinubu almost how many years now since he assumed office in 2023 to now set up a board. Well, as they say, better late than never, because he has now finally, fulfilled that obligation, that legal obligation that there must be a board. Shortly after changing the leadership of both the NUPRC and the NMDPRA. Now, two things. The NUPRC, it's a fairly straightforward aspect. When the Dangote refinery had issues with the former head of that body, Farouk Ahmed, the issue was that even the NMDPRA did not have its own laboratory. If it wants to test quality, if it wants to establish standards and set standards, it will, ordinarily outsource that to some other bodies. The first task of this new board that is led by Mr. Adeniji is simply to make sure that that body, that NMDPRA, at least sets up a laboratory that can be, relied upon. And two, that the NMDPRA does not get involved in this old practice of giving approvals for importation. The business should be how to, grow activities in the midstream and the downstream. And then as for the refineries, there is an opinion abroad that these refineries that are comatose, that are just a waste on the resources of Nigeria, should be sold, even if it is a scrap or whatever, or something should be done about them. That would be within the purview also of the NMDPRA board. And then, of course, to ensure accountability, to ensure transparency. Now, incidentally, the chairman of that board, Mr. Adeniji, he has been in oil and gas. I think he was involved in helping to fine-tune the petroleum oil sector reform, particularly in the area of gas. So he's familiar with the subject. It's not as if, it's a tyro being given, an assignment that he is so wicked. That is not the leader of any party in Rivers State. That is the governor of the state, Sim Fubara, who is now known as 401. That is the leader of the APC in Rivers State, and that is not answerable to people who are outside the party. Netawe even rubbed it in and said, as far as they are concerned, Wike is a member of the PDP. Now, Senator Ajibola Basho, who is the national secretary of the party, also more or less rubbed it in and said the man that they recognize in the APC is Sim Fubara. And now Bashiru went a step further and said if Wike is more concerned about politics in Rivers, he should resign his appointment at the federal level and go and face Rivers politics. So it's a kind of rejection by some of the principal members of the APC itself. So while he may be on good terms with President Tinubu, some people clearly oppose him, even within the APC that he says is helping. And this will have implications for politics in Rivers State particularly. But Wike says he's the one in charge of Rivers, that Rivers is a no-go area, that Bashiru will burn his hands, that in fact he should go and ask from people who tried to intervene in Rivers before and what happened to them, more or less making himself in a grandiloquent manner, the emperor of Rivers State, to a position to which nobody has either appointed him or anointed him. But, politicians also learn their lessons. It may well happen that the same President Tinubu that he says he will report Bashiru to, and the Minister of Blue Economy may have their own ideas in terms of the utility value of Wike himself, either as a politician or as somebody campaigning for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I've made this point before, so I repeat it again. Now, INEC, the voter registration, it's called a continuous voter registration exercise. They've completed the first phase, and were able to register physically over 2 million people, another over 1 million on online, online registration that have been put into the pool. The long-term objective is to make sure that the election the elections that INEC will conduct in 2027 will be such elections that will allow the right to choose freely and fairly, and that the enabling environment is provided to make sure that this is a reality when we go to the polls.
Absolutely. I think that's the most apt way to put our outlook on this ongoing exercise of voter registration that has now gone into its second phase. INEC Director of Voter Education was captured at my home in Caracas, Venezuela. Those were his words. He was interrupted. Did they compliment your hair this morning, Vimbai? Did they say anything? They never noticed.
How much is your hair?
This one. Oh,
I can't notice
this is African style.
Because I'm not your Luwori.
In response, this is what he said. I, Sir Nicolas of the Republic of Venezuela, and I am here kidnapped since January 3rd. I was captured at my home in Caracas, Venezuela. Those were his words. He was interrupted by the judge, who told him that, listen, in terms of story, we'll get into that. So as I said, he said, I was captured at my home in Caracas, Venezuela. Now, moving on, we do know that Maduro is represented by the same lawyer who represented Julian Assange. Now, he also reportedly wrote pages upon pages of notes while he was in court. And when he was asked to submit his plea, he said he was innocent. Now, his wife, Celia Flores, also pleaded not guilty and referred to herself as First Lady. She had visible bandages. And in the most dramatic moment of the hearing, a man in the gallery called Maduro an illegitimate president, telling him that he will pay on behalf of Venezuela. In response, Maduro said, "In the name of God, I will be free." Dramatic scenes in the courtroom. Now, protesters did gather outside the court, with some brandishing placards reading "USA hands off Venezuela" and others saying "Thank you, President Trump." Meanwhile, Delcy Rodriguez, she was sworn in as Venezuela's interim president. She praised Maduro and his wife as heroes. So we're keeping our eyes and ears across what's happening in Venezuela. Nevertheless, the United Kingdom government is facing criticism for its muted response to the US arrest of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, with opposition parties accusing it of failing to uphold international law. Now, the UN Security Council did gather on Monday to discuss the situation. It was an emergency meeting with the United Kingdom suggesting that it will abstain if a resolution criticizing the United States intervention is voted on. Meanwhile, Downing Street has indicated that Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper will make a statement to MPs on the situation, but critics have argued that the government's response so far has been insufficient. Now, even a Labour MP, there is Steve Witherden, he said, the government's response has been insufficient. The post-war order is in tatters. Our foreign policy assumptions are outdated and we need to realign. The Liberal Democrats, they have called for a release of internal government advice on the legality of the US operation, with spokesperson Callum Miller saying that Trump's intervention in Venezuela are surely in violation of international law, yet our tight-lipped Prime Minister is refusing to call that out. Let's move on to the Middle East. Saudi Arabia has publicly accused the United Arab Emirates of undermining its national security, exposing a deep rift between the two Gulf Arab states. The unusually blunt charge reflects growing Saudi unease with the UAE's increasingly independent foreign policy, particularly in Yemen, Sudan, and in the Horn of Africa. Now, Riyadh is concerned that the instability or state collapse in these regions could have grave consequences for its own national security. That's as the dispute centers on the UAE's role in Yemen, where it has supported separatist groups, and also in Sudan, where it has significant economic interests. Saudi officials worry that the UAE's actions could embolden extremist groups such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda, which have a presence in that region. Meanwhile, the UAE has denied allegations of undermining Saudi national security, framing its foreign policy as part of a broader commitment to responsible leadership and enduring progress. However, the dispute has raised concerns about the potential consequences for global trade, as both countries are major oil exporters. And our last story on today's edition of the World Brief looks at the African continent. We're coming home. Now, journalists covering Uganda's 2026 election campaign have been facing increasing violence and intimidation from security forces and others, raising alarm about press freedom and democratic transparency. Now, reporters covering campaign events have been beaten, detained, harassed by security forces, despite clearly identifying themselves as media. Press freedom groups warn the attacks come as President Yoweri Museveni seeks to extend his decades-long rule, raising concerns about transparency and the integrity of the vote. Now, Uganda does head to the polls next week. Next week's also on the 15th of January, nevertheless. Let's take a look at our newspaper headlines now. As ever, we begin with the front page of This Day. This Day that has a range of stories. This unfortunate story, the 9 soldiers dying, 5 seriously injured in this mine blast in an ambush in Borno, obviously terrible. Another story on This Day, it does report that there's been a heated clash between FCT Minister Nyesom Wike and APC National Chairman Ajibola Basiru over Rivers State politics and Governor Siminalayi Fubara's second-term prospects. Now, Wike warned that he warned Basiru essentially to stay out of Rivers affairs, while Basiru accused Wike of overreach and demanded his resignation from the Federal Executive Council. This deepens tensions within the ruling parties. Let's see what happens there. Also on the front page, This Day does report that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has nominated former Senator Magnus Abe and Adebite Ebiowe Adeniji as chairman of the boards of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission and the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, respectively. Their names have been submitted alongside 19 other nominees, and the president has forwarded their names to the Senate for confirmation, urging swift approval to strengthen regulation in the oil and gas sector. It is Tuesday, and Tuesday means that we also take a look at The Advocate. The Advocate is Onikepo Braithwaite's column in our legal insert, and this week she argues that the trust in government, it must be earned essentially through transparency, respect for the rule of law, and accountability, not just rhetoric. Now, her column this week condemns renewed terrorist attacks in Plateau State, in Niger, and also criticizes the government's reactive approach to security and warns that alleged alterations to National Assembly passed tax bills undermine democracy. Now, let's take a look at the Daily Sun this morning. The Daily Sun does report that the Federal Ministry of Education will enforce stiffer measures against exam malpractice. It's just a story on the bottom here. And essentially, these new measures, they're going to be doing this for the 2026 SSCE. So these new measures include randomized question sequencing, unique learner IDs, stricter supervision, a prohibition of last-minute school transfers for SS3 students, and new continuous assessment submission timelines to ensure transparency and accountability. Let's take a look at The Punch. The Punch does report, again, that the African Union has extended the mandate of the multinational joint task force against Boko Haram in the Lake Chad Basin for another year. This will now start from February 2026 to January 2027. Now, the MNJTF comprises of Nigeria, Republic of Benin, Cameroon, Chad. They will all continue operations such as Lake Sanity 3, while the African Union called for increased funding, cross-border intelligence sharing too. In addition to that, The Punch also reports that Anthony Joshua may quit boxing. Now, his uncle, Adedamola Joshua, did reveal this update, saying that the former world heavyweight champion is seriously considering retirement after he was involved in a fatal car crash last month, which of course killed his two close friends, Sinagami and Abdul Latif. Very sad news there. And the Daily Independent, let's take a look at that this morning. Now, the Daily Independent does report that Nigeria's agriculture sector in 2026 could grow significantly if policy, consistency, investment, technology, adoption, climate resilience, and all that other good stuff is conducive and prioritized. Let's take a look at the New Telegraph. The New Telegraph does report, again, some politics now. So we've got Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde. He has reshuffled his cabinet. He sacked SSG Adeyemo and appointed Professor Babatunde as her replacement, with other key appointments in budget, energy, and public works. Now, still on the front page, at the downside, we've got the New Telegraph reporting that US President Donald Trump claims about 33% of Nigerian immigrant households rely on public benefits. Now, has also expanded and imposed stricter visa regulations on Nigerians and other countries. This is part of a broader immigration measure that we're seeing with the new Trump administration. Our UK papers this morning. So look at the Daily Mail. And the Daily Mail does lead on President Trump's possible territorial ambitions for Greenland and implications for NATO. Meanwhile, we do have the newspaper. And the new paper this morning says that older drivers in the United Kingdom will be banned from the roads if they fail mandatory eyesight tests. So this is under new proposals. Drivers over 70 would face driving bans if they fail to pass driving tests. So these are our newspaper headlines and our world brief. Love to hear your thoughts.
So real quickly, I just want to knock this out. I don't think whoever the uncle Ademola Joshua is should be speaking for the Joshua family, because in the first place, he didn't even see Joshua when he was in the hospital. So he has no right to be making big pronouncements like Joshua might not be able to box again, please. And I think people should not really even believe that. And I think, you know those kind of uncles now. But you know those kind of uncles. We all have them in our family.
We got the name enough and they kind of automatically make you a spokesman.
Yeah, we all have uncles like that, but knock that out. As regards Nicolas Maduro, yes, he has a right to say he was seized. See, you might have qualms against Maduro. There's been allegations. At first, it was fentanyl, but now they're charging him for cocaine. So you can see how the allegations shift and all of that. But the way America did it was wrong. And he has a right to say I was captured.
Yes, he said he was kidnapped.
And they are taking him to a court that is being headed by Helston, a Jewish person. You can see the Jewish relationship with Iran, and somebody that had first persecuted a co-defendant on the Maduro case in 2011, a 92-year-old judge for that matter. And also, he has a right to rebuff, and I'm happy he has got a good attorney in the person that defended Julian Assange, because what America did impacted on the sovereignty of Venezuela. And America wants to now do deals with anybody. Now they're doing deal with the Chavista, the incumbent vice president of Venezuela, to be able to stabilize the government. Will that work? I don't think so. The quick wins they want with oil is a long-term development, because when you see where the oil is in Venezuela, it's in the eastern part of Venezuela, and it's very, very hard to extract because it's dense, forested region. And you need a lot of investment. Some people are saying over $100 billion. So this your idea of getting geopolitical edge by saying, okay, let's shush China out of Venezuela and not doing it the right way is entirely wrong. And that's why a lot of people are talking about Greenland already. Because if we can do this to Venezuela, obviously we can do it to Greenland, it's behind Greenland. And the silence from Europe is so loud. And that's why we keep on talking about when will Europe stand tall to Trump. This is it.
Yes, sir. It seems it's a game of personal interests now. So, many are choosing to remain silent in the face of this huge issue, this huge global injustice, because they don't want to get dragged in, because it seems anybody can get dragged in. But in all of this, yesterday, while the court appearance was happening in Venezuela, we saw the inauguration of the now acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, who was former vice president and who is still a question mark, because many people are asking, where does she really lie? Is she going to play ball with Donald Trump, or is she loyal to her principal, who is now indisposed? However, what we did see in the scenes during her inauguration was we saw her overwhelming support from Nicolas Maduro's son, Nicolas Maduro Guerra. And also in her inauguration, she pledged her allegiance to Bolivar. Now, this is an interesting development for me, because when things like this happen, I'm always interested in the law of unintended consequences. What has happened in Venezuela? What has happened in Venezuela is that the militant groups known as the Colectivos have now started rising up, because there's a power vacuum. So what are they doing? They're taking controls of neighborhoods. They're taking controls of also the oil regions. And the worry is that they're going to start sabotaging pipelines in a very similar way that we've seen happen in this part of the world regularly. But But they're saying that this is now a fight against imperialism, that this is a fight against colonialism, and that if America thinks they're coming to take oil, they will sabotage those efforts. What has happened? We've seen the oil price has gone up already this morning. And now, still on the issue of oil, why is Venezuelan oil so important? I know many people have spoken about the sheer resource that's available, over 300, is it 300 billion barrels. 303 billion. However, a lot of people are not talking about the type of oil they have, which is heavy oil. Now, why is heavy oil important? Heavy oil is important because if you look at the refineries in America that are now becoming moribund because heavy oil is in short supply globally. Venezuela is a producer of heavy oil. If you look at the refineries in Texas, the one in LA, they need that heavy oil, and Venezuela is the only place they can get it. Places like Nigeria, we have the light oil, the Bonny light, and so forth. So there's all those dynamics playing. I hope there's no insurgency brewing.
Okay, let me just make a few comments. The first thing, Maduro yesterday, one thing I noted was that he said, one, that he's innocent. The wife, in fact, said, okay, they were completely not guilty. He made the point that he was captured and he said he's a prisoner of war.
Yes.
You recall that in 1989, during the trial of Manuel Noriega, Noriega's lawyers insisted that he was a prisoner of war. And under the Geneva Conventions, there are specific ways in which you can treat a prisoner of war.
Yes.
And that was why Noriega was put in something like a house arrest for about 20 years, and he was allowed access to certain basic privileges that a prisoner of war would be entitled.
He also surrendered, so perhaps that...
Yes, so in this particular case, it's instructive that Maduro is saying right from the beginning that he's not just innocent, he's a prisoner of war. The third thing about Tercy Rodriguez, she has already told President Trump that she will do whatever America wants. However, President Trump's response is that she has no option anyway, in the matter. But it's not likely that will make a Chavismo, a person who is associated with Chavez ideology, the president of Venezuela. They will probably be looking in the direction of Maria Machado, who is the opposition leader and the Nobel laureate. But the trial is likely to take a very long time. It's not as if it is automatic. However, China has spoken up in support of Venezuela, and it says its economic interest in Venezuela runs into about $4.8 billion in the last 2 decades or thereabouts, and that it's interested in protecting that, and that America should release the couple who have been arrested. But very quickly, let me talk about Saudi Arabia versus UAE.
Sure.
They used to be friends, allies. In fact, was it 2015, they came together to fight the threat of the Houthi rebels that were backed by Iran in Yemen. But by 2014, the Houthi rebels, 2014, 2016, the Houthi rebels had already seized Yemen to become the major power in that area. And so you had a lot of factions, militias coming together. The northern part is controlled by the militia group, whatever it remains of the official government of Yemen, backed by Saudi Arabia. It now turned out, the parting of ways with UAE, is that the UAE is now supporting the Southern Transitional Council that is in control of the southern part, which is thinking of returning Yemen to the situation in 1990, when in that southern part there was some kind of independent republic in that area. Now, this has implications for the security of Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia has issues with Yemen, also Sudan.
Yes.
And the whole issue is economic. Access to the Red Sea and the two major straits, the Strait of Hormuz and the Strait of Barnabas, which is used to transport crude oil.
Yes.
So there is that strategic interest involved. However, what UAE is saying is that, look, they are just fighting ISI and other insurgents around the place, which is not true. And that was why the supply that they gave to the people in the southern part had to be attacked by Saudi Arabia. But beyond all of that, Saudi Arabia sees itself as the golden boy, the golden country in the Middle East, and that other countries should follow what he does. So UAE has been trying to assert itself. However, both of them will be mediated by the US to prevent escalation, since both of them are friends of the United States. Anyway, not enough time.
Never enough time. Never enough time. Thank you so much, Eddie, for that insightful take of stories around the world.
We will continue to bring you their information. You see why they keep their debates. We will continue to bring it.
Now, for a country blighted by punishing insecurity, catastrophic loss of life, and the indignity of poverty in 2025, not to mention political defections on an epic, audacious, and dramatic scale, is there likely to be a beacon of hope in 2026? As the politicians bellow provocatively at each other, set against their cutthroat ambition, the traumatized country they're supposed to guide towards prosperity jumps from one crisis to the next. Into this mix came the Trump curveball, an outsized influence in the latter part of 2025 and a possible influence in 2026, be it militarily, politically, and perhaps even economically. Meanwhile, as we ponder how Abuja might navigate this friction, President Tinubu's political machine has been steadily taking firm control of this country, with most of his rivals either picked apart, co-opted, or pushed aside. A world in which life for the non-defecting opposition members has become like mice trying to navigate their way through a field of rattlesnakes, as one of them put it. A world which some say is careening towards a gate. So, against this backdrop, what might be in store for Nigeria in 2026? Well, let's tap into the instincts, insights, and assessments of the president of ANAP Foundation and founder of Stanbic IBTC Bank, Mr. Taylor Peterside, CON, as he attempts to predict the events that will unfold in our unpredictable world in 2026. Together, we'll peer into the future. President Trump's next moves in Nigeria to this country's other challenges and possible breakthroughs. What might shape the coming year? And I'm joined now from our studios in Lagos by Mr. Taylor Peterside, CON. Mr. Peterside, thank you very much indeed for joining us. So let me first of all say Happy New Year to you, because I don't think I've seen you in 2026. Now, you've analyzed...
Happy New Year, Charles.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for being, for joining us, and of course being punctual as usual. You've, of course, analyzed manifold political topics that have helped to forge the political consciousness of so many in this country. Having said that, we've just ended 2025. Do you have standout moments for that year? And can you guide us through the red flags as we enter 2026 as briefly as you can?
Look, for me, the standout moment in 2025 was poverty. And I don't know whether, Charles, you are close to your home in Nigeria, I mean, where you come from originally. But as an economist, I'm frightened when I come across people all over the country who are severely impoverished. And I actually wonder how they manage to stay alive. So I think that poverty, rising poverty, is going to be the main thing that will drive what happens in this country. It's all very well for you're talking about one-party states and all that. What you mean is that if all the rich people, all the oppressors gather in one place, they're hoping that they can weaponize poverty and get the poor people not to understand that these people gathered in one place are the oppressors. If you have really clever operators and they have time, they have a whole year, more than a year, to begin to galvanize people and explain to them. But guess what? You are the victims. Those guys gathered in one place are the oppressors. The oppressors are the ones that have the problem. You know, the whole formula of thinking that you can, at the last minute, buy votes here and there, it may work, it may not work. And then also, I think the rising or the problem with insecurity has reached such a level that it will also hurt this government.
Well, that's interesting, because my next question to you was going to be, how do you think those issues you raised from 2025 have gone for President Tinubu? Will he be feeling good after 2025 with good accomplishments that he can put on his record, perhaps beyond just poverty, or do you think he'll be worried about what 2026 has in store, given the apparent slips of 2025, such as increased poverty, for instance?
You know, I've said it before that it's all very well. The federal government has taken some important economic actions. You know, the input fuel subsidy, the exchange rate is largely market determined. You cannot keep on sort of clapping for yourself for those two policy actions, which really were done 18 months ago. What matters really is living standards, poverty. And I believe that staying the course is going to be very difficult. You know, we've done some of these things before, especially exchange rates, you know, being market determined. The challenge is that government spending, the government wants to spend plenty of money. When I'm talking government, I mean federal and state. The revenues they're getting are not sufficient for the type of spending they're doing. If you don't have enough revenue, something has to give. But at the federal level, your choices are you either reduce expenses or you go borrowing. Or the third and final option is you print money. I think so far, this government has decided they're not going to print money. So your choice is really either raise the revenue or you cut down your spending or you go borrowing. And they've been borrowing and borrowing. So when I say something has to give, unless the revenues go up dramatically, you know, it will be very difficult to stay that course.
And I want to apologize if I make you repeat yourself. I mean, we didn't lose you technically, and the audience could still hear you, but I lost you for a minute, and I'm worried that I might be making you repeat yourself. But having said that, do you think the president should be worried about what's in store for the economy in 2026? I mean, there are reports, for instance, of a reset in the Ministry of Finance following a public admission of a revenue shortfall in 2025.
Look, I think anybody who runs Nigeria should be worried, unless they don't fully understand the country. You've got to be worried. You're going to have a country of 230 million people, 140 million are debt poor, and then you fail to worry. More importantly, like I said earlier, the revenue projections, the revenues that you're hoping will come in, even with the tax reform and all. You see, the problem is that the bulk of the people that have the most wealth are friends of this government. Are they going to be able to raise that revenue from their own friends? If you think you're going to leave all those people alone and be taxing Charles, and Joe down the road, it's not going to happen. You know what happened in Saudi Arabia? At the point when they had difficulty with the economy, somebody called all the big guns together into one hotel and said, hey, let's sit down and tell ourselves some home truths and decide the way forward. So that I don't think that this kind of revenue that we are hoping to get will come easily. It's not going to happen. Take the oil and gas sector. The trend has been that some of the oil blocks will transfer ownership from an IOC to a Nigerian group, the first thing you notice shortly after is that the volume of taxes they are paying drops or collapses. So how do you solve that problem? That's why I said that the big test is going to be, are they going to be able to raise the revenue to go on spending? And if you want to borrow, how much longer can you keep on borrowing for?
Indeed.
And poverty is rising all the time.
Right. In that context, as you look to 2026, would your advice to Nigerians be to hold on tight because there's worse to come, or do you see things moving in a more positive direction for the generality of Nigerians?
No. I think, look, let's be careful. Sometimes you can have an economy where the big guns are doing very well. Their income is going up in the stock market and all. But I'm referring to the 140 million poor people. That's where the problem is. And I think Nigeria clearly has an income distribution problem. We have the very wealthy and we have the phenomenally poor. And you cannot have equilibrium when there are so many poor people around you. That's why I wouldn't say I'm frightened, but I pinch myself when I see wealthy people believe that everything will be fine forever. And around them there are hundreds of millions of people who are poor. And I think that I don't want to equate poverty with insecurity. Nor do I want to equate it with banditry or things like that. But I think it's obvious that for the bandits, for the terrorists, for people whom the state is offering next to nothing, some of them can be easily recruited. So they become the future bandits and the future terrorists potentially. Also, we have 30 million children out of school. People who are not educated are increasingly difficult to integrate into a modern economy. So if they can't do a proper job, they also become targets for bandits and terrorists. So we have a serious problem on our hands. How can the president sit pretty?
Right. Well, that's a fairly substantial question that you raised there, and that brings me to the other aspect of that, the fallout from what you were talking about, that's Donald Trump. Because if the pressure from Donald Trump on Nigeria and the Tinubu administration continues through 2026, do you see storm clouds on the horizon?
Yes, I see storm clouds largely because Donald Trump, whatever he does, is going to choose a narrative that suits his own domestic base. And the problem is that, so at least so far, our government has not been good enough to come up with narratives that counter whatever Trump is talking about. But let's also be careful, because I don't subscribe to the notion that, everything Trump is saying is total nonsense. I think it's about language and choice of words. This whole talk about genocide, I think people have to understand that genocide can also be defined by geography. If you say there was genocide, there was the Holocaust, World War II, it was in Germany. You could say there was genocide in Germany. It's not true that you can therefore say that there was genocide in the whole of Europe. I think people are failing to make that distinction. In Nigeria, we have parts of the North Central where what has happened there is akin to genocide, in the sense that, but we're talking about in an enclave. Now, just because the genocide is in an enclave, or is in a state, or is in a region, and the victims are in IDPs, does not mean that you cannot say that the whole of Nigeria has genocide. Those are two different things. Genocide, is genocide for the victim. The victim is the one that defines, in terms of the reason why he is in that predicament, the reason why he lost his relatives, the reason why he lost his life and property has nothing to do with him. It has something to do with which tribe he belongs to, which ethnic group, or which sometimes which religion. So that is in that enclave you can talk about genocide. So I think there's been lots of experts talking, saying there's no genocide in Nigeria. Genocide can exist in pockets. And it's also true that it's wrong to say that everywhere in Nigeria there's genocide. I've not seen genocide in Lagos, but I've seen genocide in pockets, especially in the North Central. Right. The Middle Belt, as an example. I've seen genocide in parts of the Northeast. Yeah. If Boko Haram goes somewhere and wipe everybody out, what do you call that?
Right. Well, that's an interesting definition. I don't want to get bogged down with that. Let me move on because time is galloping ahead. And let me turn to opposition politics, which you're well familiar with in Nigeria here. What type of opposition do you see emerging in this country in 2026 going into 2027? Do you see their energy, for example, strengthening around perhaps the ADC and the fact that they have a common political enemy in President Tinubu, or do you see that energy wasting away and dissipating further around the PDP, Labour and the SDP with more divisions emerging?
No, I think the jury is still out on that. There's still plenty of time. And like I said, it's about how clever the politicians are. But one thing is sure, if all that the opposition politicians, the leaders, if all that they want to do is to insist, I have to be the candidate, it's me or nothing else, then of course it's not going to work. I think the priority has got to be to build something first. So you've got to first concentrate on the things that unite you before you focus on the one thing that may divide you. But in any case, I always ask myself, if everybody wants to be president, that tells me that something is wrong with all those people. Because what makes you think in a country of 230 million people that you and you alone have a divine right to be president? I mean, there's a level of arrogance and conceit and probably even delusion out there. So how can you look at another human being in the face and tell him that it has to be me or nobody else? So I think that the opposition have to focus on building something, bringing the rank and file into the fold, selling the story of hardship, poverty, insecurity. In effect, they've got to have a message, a rallying point first, and then talk about who will lead later. But if you're constantly each person threatening that it's either I lead or everything falls apart, I mean, there's still plenty of time. But I think ABC was a rallying point, largely because one or two other parties like SDP did not, and on the face of it, the talks fell apart eventually. So ABC by default became a rallying point.
Right, and I'm going to come to that SDP in a minute, but of course, there is still the question, as you correctly identified there, of who will lead the ADC and perhaps by extension the opposition into the 2027 presidential election. I mean, do you see anyone being able to forge the right grip to do that in 2026 going into 2027?
I think they should, if they change their tactics, it's possible. Give people assignments. Everybody go out and sign up party members. Give people assignments. There's no use everybody sitting down in his house doing nothing and saying that I must be the candidates. They must give people assignments, and then you'll be able to see who performs, who delivers, and then begin to see whether there's a basis. Sometimes if you give everybody that kind of assignment, you will have to look at who has been most successful, and you will realize that somebody has been following. But if you just sit down in a room having meetings of a few big men, you can go on forever, and it will lead to nothing. People should go out and do all the work on the field, go out and send a message, go out and get people to go and register to vote, explain all the issues and challenges, what programs you think you can do better. In fact, I'm saying that they should get to work. When you get to work, it's impossible for 5 human beings or 6 human beings to work equally well. When they get to work, you will soon be able to separate the men from the boys.
And of course, you mentioned the SDP earlier. You, of course, joined the SDP in 2022. Where do you stand now politically?
Charles, I joined the SDP for a reason. There were 18 political parties. I did not believe the government would register a new party for the last election. So I joined the SDP with the intention of helping to provide to play the role of a catalyst, to make that possible, that party be receptive or to be the rallying point for many like-minded politicians. It did not work last time because some of them decided that it should be Labour. This time around, too, there was lots of discussions with the SDP. I helped to encourage people to put down their differences and talk, and it did not work out. So I decided to leave the SDP, 1st of January this year, because it became clear to me that there were obstacles that made it impossible for SDP to be the rallying point. The party had the good building blocks in terms of a good manifesto, some organization and all. But sometimes, perhaps, if it's supposed to be, it will be. If it's not supposed to be, somebody else will take it. And I think on balance, people found ADC a bit more receptive or a bit more flexible. I'm not apportioning blame, but it doesn't matter. You've got to pick a party sooner or later. But I have left the SDP and I've not joined any party yet.
Right, okay, because that was going to be my next question. Are you looking at any party? But you mentioned the sort of initiatives that are there to help move this country's democracy forward. We recall your Go Nigeria